Hello and welcome back to the Star Ocean Retrospective. This time we're looking at the Japan-only sequel to Star Ocean: The Second Story. It's a Game Boy Color game called Star Ocean Blue Sphere, and I'm holding this upside down, which is totally fine. Star Ocean Blue Sphere came out for the Game Boy Color in Japan on June 28, 2001. It never came to America, or any overseas territory for that matter, due to a number of reasons. For one, it's a Game Boy Color game that came out about 4 months after the Game Boy Advance was released, and it's a franchise that not many people are into. Enix, the publisher of this game in Japan, had plans to translate it and release it here in America. But because of the size of the game and the hardware it was on, they decided against it. I'm sure publishers in the West wanted nothing to do with this game too, so stuck in Japan it was. Development for this game started in 2000, gathering many of the past Star Ocean staff to work on it, such as Yoshiharu Gotanda and Motoi Sakuraba, and it was designed to hold over fans until Star Ocean Till the End of Time came out, which was in development during this time. According to producer Yoshinori Yamagashi, development became so harsh at one point that staff programming the game began to collapse from exhaustion, causing some of the programming work to be put to a halt. Unfortunately, the extremely hard work put into this game did not seem to resonate with fans, as it only sold 130,000 units in its lifetime. Star Ocean Blue Sphere is definitely the black sheep of this entire franchise. This game is so niche that it didn't even get an English fan translation until December of 2019, almost 20 years after it came out. Hell, I didn't even know about it until I saw it at a game store's Japanese import section. From that moment on, I was very curious about how it played and how it looked, and since I finally have the English translation in hand, let's see what Star Ocean Blue Sphere has to offer. The game takes place 2 years after Star Ocean 2, and immediately sees the gang crash landing on a new planet called Edifice. They come to Edifice in order to help Opera and Ernest, who have been treasure hunting from planet to planet and sent a distress call after their ship crash lands as well. Yeah, Edifice seems really nice, you come here on your ship and you immediately crash land it. It's great. Oh, and Claude and Rena aren't here either because they're doing Federation missions now, so we won't get to see them for a very long time. But at least you get to see the entire cast of Star Ocean 2, even if you didn't pick them in the original game. So to recap, we have Ashton, Diaz, Celine, Noelle, Chisato, Bowman, Leon, and Priestess available at the start, with Claude, Rena, Opera, and Ernest available when you unlock them as the story progresses. Once the gang crash lands, they figure they might as well explore the planet and search for their friends, hoping that once Rena and Claude are back from their mission, they'll be able to save them. And that's really the story. There's not really much else to it other than going town to town, learning about Edifice and how to find your friends. There's not much in terms of character development, if at all, except for the main villain, but we'll get to that later. So that's the story, and let's move on. You could pick anyone out of the entire cast to be on your team at any point. There's a teleporter that Priestess gives you from the start, and any location you go to is automatically registered once you enter it. So if you get to a new location and you want a new person on your team, all you have to do is teleport back to the ship, pick anyone you want for the team, and then go back to where you were and keep going from there. But I mostly stayed with the team I picked from the beginning, being Diaz, Ashton, and Noelle. I picked these three because I never got a chance to have them in the second story, so I wanted them on my team now. That and the fact the strategy guide I was reading said that picking anyone besides Diaz is a death wish for this game, and he's powerful, so yeah, I obviously chose him. The characters don't play too much different from each other, having combos and weapons being the main difference, but I'll get more into the battle system in a bit. The real difference is seen in the environmental abilities that each character has and can learn as you level up. These environmental abilities include mundane things like running or jumping, but you can also have more character-specific abilities, such as Ashton's ability to spit fire with his dragon heads, and Chisato's ability to take pictures of enemies for the bestiary. However, that's only the pictures for the enemies. If you want the bestiary info, you're gonna have to use Noelle on your team and use his ability to scan enemies. It's very weird that taking the picture doesn't give you the info, but I guess it makes sense because Noelle is like a nature dude and Chisato is like a reporter, so it makes sense she takes pictures. But at the same time, if she's a reporter, she like investigates stuff for the news, right? So she should know the enemy details. And Noelle's never been to this planet before, So how would he automatically know, oh, that's like a lizard, that dude spits like vet, you know? It doesn't make any sense. Regardless, these environmental abilities are a neat addition to this game, but if I'm being honest, I didn't use most of them. I used the jump ability and the fire ability and an ability to place bombs, which is necessary at times. But outside of that, I mostly used Dias's dashing ability, which made movement feel so much better. That's why you play Dias. Any of the other abilities are mostly if you want to complete the bestiary, and I really don't feel inclined to do that whatsoever. So if you want to 100% this game, you're going to have Chisato and Noelle. As you can see, this game is much like the first in the series, as it's Zelda style, going from one map section to the other with screen transitions. No open world map is used in this game, but at least there's a teleporting option, which wasn't available in the first game. And right now I'm getting war flashbacks of having to backtrack in Star Ocean 1, and my god, that game would have benefited so much from having a fast travel system, but you know what, that's a different story. Go watch that video if you're interested. Unlike the first game, however, it is hard to see where you could go in this game sometimes, and that could lead to a lot of falls, which has the gang take damage and can also put you in a completely different spot than where you wanted to go. This leads to a lot of frustrating moments, particularly in this forest dungeon, which is by far the least amount of fun I've had in a game in years. You can easily fall off these branches, and if you're not careful, there's no easy way to get back to where you were. If I didn't have the strategy guide with the maps included, I would be completely lost in this area. But this strategy guide doesn't even help much outside of maps though, considering it's in Japanese and the Google Translate does not do a good job translating it. This sense of being lost is throughout most of the game too, and there's no real sense of direction to go in most, if not all, the dungeons. Even trying to go to the next part of the story in the overworld is extremely hard to figure out. All the areas look very similar, with the dungeons and forest areas being the hardest to tell apart from each other. Most dungeons are abandoned labs, which all start to look the same the farther you get along in the game. There's also a lot of branching paths and sections that lead to nowhere with dead ends and no items. All of this culminates to a lot of confusion as the player. There's only one good game facts guide that you could follow, but it was written in 2002. The guy clearly had a Japanese copy and didn't know what was going on, and he doesn't give you much information other than this is what you gotta do, figure it out. But if you're diligent like me, you can definitely get past a good amount of this game to see what it has to offer. That is, if you can manage to master the battle system of the game, which honestly isn't too hard. The battle system in this game is unique for an RPG, especially on the Game Boy. Enemies are seen in the overworld, and when you run into them or they run into you, a battle initiates. The battles, unlike walking in the overworld, are from a side point of view with the enemy on your left and your team on the right. You press A to attack, and if you time the next button press correctly, you can keep going and make a combo. Apparently you can combo up to 99 times, but I only ever got it to around 6 or 7, so try the best you can. You can also do spells or special attacks by pressing the B button and either up, down, left, or right on the D-pad. I only ever unlocked this one with Diaz, but Ashton has a bunch of cool ones, and Noelle has healing spells, and a cool whirlwind thing. Again though, I only use these 3 characters, and there's a bunch more to choose from, so variety is a sure thing when it comes to these special moves. Enemies have multiple health bars, each representing a body part. When you deplete one of these health bars, the enemies will stop using that body part. At least that's what's supposed to happen anyways, according to the guide and the game facts writer. It seemed to me that every time I would empty one of these bars, nothing would happen. The enemy still attacked normally and used all its abilities. Either my game is messed up, and honestly it could be, and I will get to that later, or the Japanese writer of the official guide and the 2002 game facts dude lied to me. You be the judge. Battles range from incredibly easy to extremely difficult, with some in between. You can either run up to something and completely obliterate it off the face of the planet, or they will just utterly destroy every atom in your body, leaving you as Noelle running around frantically trying to figure out how to use items in battle, which I didn't know how to use until more than halfway through the game because the game doesn't tell you to press the select button, and since I'm playing on a GameCube controller, I had no idea what select button was meant to. But with enough effort and some mild grinding, you can take out enemies, even if it takes you a couple tries. The good thing about this game is you can save anywhere, so if you feel concerned in any spot, just save after every battle like I had to do much of the late game. I would go into specifics about the different bosses and enemies, but they all really just kind of blended together. There wasn't really a boss that stuck out to me, aside from the final boss. And some of the normal enemies were just as powerful as the bosses, leaving the threat of them completely gone. Like, this guy looks cool, I guess, but he's just a robot crab, and he shows up as a normal enemy in the next dungeon. A lot of the enemies are reused, too. But I will let that slide because it is a Game Boy Color game and there's already a lot packed into this cartridge. So to recap, we got a bunch of battles that all feel the same, and a lot of areas that also feel the same, which leads this game to not make a great impression. But as I said before, I am diligent and I am willing to play this game as long as it takes for me to beat it, which obviously took a while. I mean, look at the date. Skill points, or SP, are back in this game yet again, and it serves as a way to level up characters. You earn SP after every battle, and this time, that SP goes into a pool which you can distribute to any and all characters, provided that you swap your party. This is basically the SP system from the two previous games, minus how the SP is in a pool now. So skills like Analysis, Knife, Monstrology, Focus, and Gust. Just like the last few games, leveling up these skills will level up certain stats on the character, depending on the type of skill. Leveling them up also allows characters to learn specials and create feats, which are this game's version of skills from the past games, like Cooking, Expertise, Oracle, Carpenter, etc. Create feats are very interesting in this game, as before, in past games, if you were at a high enough level, it would just automatically, for this example, identify an item you have. You have to play a pseudo mini-game of just moving this cursor around the screen and eventually identifying the object. Very weird, but I guess it works. It really takes away from leveling up the skills though, because now you have to do more than just level up. But you know, it's not that hard, it's just a silly little thing that they were probably like, yeah, add it in, and here it is. There's definitely a lot more to this system than what I saw, but the characters I chose don't get all the skills the game has. Leveling up all those characters takes a lot of time too, and for how easy the game is without these create feats, I don't think it's really worth it. There is a problem, however, with this entire progression system though. I grinded in an area for about 2 hours one day, and just leveled up Diaz fully. After that, I felt powerful, but only for a little bit. Eventually, enemies started overpowering my team again, and there was nothing I could do other than keep trying to win battles until I succeeded. I didn't learn any more specials other than his default one, and I couldn't level up anymore, causing a lock on all progress with him. I alluded to my game being broken before, and either it really is, or I somehow messed up leveling up. There's no real guide online to how to unlock these abilities other than leveling up skills and you'll eventually learn them. I leveled him up completely, and I didn't learn shit. I also leveled up my other teammates fully, and they kept learning new moves. It's very frustrating for this game not to give feedback for all the grinding I did. Again, it could be my copy of the game, which, full disclosure, is a third-party reproduction cartridge with an English patch in it, and if it is my cartridge, I have a bone to pick with a certain Etsy shop that sold this to me. But regardless, even if the progression system seemed broken to me, I was still able to advance through the game and eventually finish it, even if it meant a lot of saving and restarting. Alright, now it's time to talk about the main antagonist of the game, who really comes out of nowhere as the villain. If you don't want to know much about the story and want a fresh playthrough, you can skip to this time if you want my final thoughts about the game. You first meet her when you go to this town called Knot, a scientific community trying to figure out the secrets of the world they live on. You go into the ancient lab and find Opera hanging out with her for some reason. Her name is Rival, and Opera helped her escape from a monster, so she decided to chill with her. Eventually, she gets overcome by a demon who gets born on this planet every 200 years and destroys it. Oh, and she also caused the crash landings of Ernest and Opera, the crash landing we saw at the beginning that happened to the rest of the gang, and the crash landing that eventually happens to Claude and Rena when they come to the planet. Yeah, 3 ship crashes in one game. You would think that the distress calls that the other teams sent would have warned them about the crash landings, but I guess not. Anyways, yeah, she's evil, and you have to go through the underworld of this game called Scream to find the gods of this world. And you talk to them about the planet, and them giving you strength to defeat her, and you have to go through their trials. Yeah, it's really convoluted, and the story didn't grip me at all. It's a pretty standard story made worse by having no character development at all, aside from Rival herself, if you could even consider that development. One thing I didn't bring up so far was the music, and it really wasn't bad, just pretty repetitive. There's not many songs on this soundtrack, and due to the sound limitations of the Game Boy, it doesn't really get a chance to shine. As I've said before, Sakuraba returned to this game, and his songs are very well done, for what he had to work with anyways. And remember what I said before about not telling the difference between the bosses and the regular enemies? Well, the only real differentiator is the music. That's how you know you're fighting King Crab boss versus King Crab enemy. At first, I did like the regular battle music, but after playing through the entire game, hearing it every other minute, It kind of gets old. The boss music is pretty good though, and the arranged versions Sakuraba has done are incredible. I recommend listening to those versions of these songs, and I've been playing some of them in the background of this video. Taking the songs at face value, they're really good, but they're held back by the Game Boy. This game was designed to be played in short segments though, not like what I did and played for hours at a time, which is probably why the music started to bother me. Sakuraba did what he could, and he's already proven himself as a great composer, so I can't fault him for this lackluster soundtrack. And that's Star Ocean Blue Sphere. If there's one thing I can say, it's that it's a very ambitious game trying to fit a full-scale RPG on the Game Boy Color. But at the same time, it was being forced to scale back due to production issues. Story, the progression system, music, and the battle system all took a toll when it came to these limitations, and unfortunately, the game overall did not feel great to play. The art, at least, is very well done for the Game Boy, especially the cutscenes, what little there are of those. If you like Star Ocean, I'd say give it a shot, but if not, I don't think it's worth your time. Unless, of course, you're curious like me and wanted to play an RPG for the Game Boy Color. Then I would say, let your curiosity take over, and play it, because, you know, you might like it, unlike I did. And that's okay, because differing opinions are good to have. Star Ocean Blue Sphere tried its hardest, but boy, did it fail. But you know what, it was more of a side project anyway to hold fans over for Star Ocean till the end of time, that was releasing less than a year later. And it was more ambitious too, and it was going to set the Star Ocean franchise to the next generation. So next up on our retrospective, we are going to look at Star Ocean Till the End of Time, which happens to be my first Star Ocean game, and the one I fell in love with. And I haven't played it in 15 to 20 years, so let's try it out.